Coalition made a lot of adjustments to the Horde mode in Gears of War 5. One of those additions was AI soldiers, or teammates, to fill the remaining slots in games where not enough players were present. These AI teammates are quite good, but just how capable and how good are they? Can you beat Gears of War 5's Horde mode by only using the AI soldiers? What's up guys, Seabad2110 here, and this is a new idea I had for video, so I'm going to just run through how this works. The gameplay will be going on in the background for the first few waves. So as you can see, I've started up a private player Horde mode, single player, on the map Harbour, and there's no particular choice this map, I just picked it at random. And this, with me being on my own, gives me 4 additional AI soldiers, because Horde is a team of 5. And for this run, I debated between picking either the Cog Gear or Jack, and I decided to go with Jack for the simple reason that, as we can see here, Jack, when he's not near an enemy or not engaged in combat, he actually cloaks, which is very, very handy, and the AIs don't target him. And it's basically like I'm not there. So as we can see here, Wave 8 was quite an interesting one because we had our first, well, I say our, the AI teammates had their first encounter with a Scion. And what I quite like about this is you can see the start of Gears 5, the tutorial in the campaign, is basically Baird going through reprogramming the DBs to be a bit more human with Dell, and it's very, very reminiscent of a human player. That's why I bring this up. As you can see, sort of leading the Scion away, almost training the enemies to some extent. Well, it's going to work, and I'm going to show the first sort of 20 waves. I'll be showing the bigger sort of stuff. So like when we first encounter enemies with claws, which that locust swarm drone was using there, and first time we encounter enemies like the Scion there. And then the rest of it will be waves 25, 30, and then just bigger boss waves where we have difficulties. So our first boss wave here, wave 10, and we got a Swarmak, which isn't the worst boss in the world. It's actually one of the easier bosses that you can have. And in fairness, the AI teammates actually did really, really well with this. I mean, the health got knocked down pretty quickly. I mean, you can see the progress bar in the top left for the number of enemies and the amount of enemies that are still present. And they've got him quite down to low health, and then this happened. As you can see, the one on the right is absolutely, and left now, are absolutely pelting the Swarmak with bullets, and he's not taking any more damage. So I thought, okay, let's just leave this for a little bit, and then I think it suddenly dawned on me that perhaps the player has to deal damage on the bot, has to deal the killing blow on the bosses. So I went up with Jack, marked him as well to see if that would potentially get all 4 of them to fire on him. Didn't make any difference. They all fired bullets at him, and he still didn't take any additional damage. So in the end, I had to go over and electrocute him myself and see if that did anything. As you can see on the right hand side of Jack there, they are just pelting Swarmak with bullets. So I go in, zap him, bring up the scoreboard, and I did 18 damage. So, to answer the titular question, no, you cannot beat Gears of War 5's Horde mode with only the AI soldiers, because with bosses like the Swarmak, for example, a player needs to do the final blow. I got distracted by a sign here. However, that's not going to deter me. As you can see, we're on wave 11, so I've continued going through this. And what I'm basically going to keep doing is see how effective the AI are. I mean, yes, the titular challenge is debunked, but now it's just going to be a case of, can they actually do it? With me obviously delivering potentially the final blow to bosses, how capable are they of dealing through 50 waves? Now, before people point out in the comments that yes, this is done on beginner, because the whole point of this challenge was not the difficulty setting, it was just, can it be done? So that's my answer to that. If you disagree with that and think I should do a harder setting, you know, let me know, or feel free to dislike the video. But the main purpose of this challenge was the actual difficulty in the can you beat challenge, not the actual difficulty setting on the game. So I decided about wave 13 I needed to make a little mini game for myself, because I was just sitting at the back, and I decided to collect ammo boxes. And yeah, I get quite a few, as we can see here. This goes on throughout the run, to be honest. This run in total took 5.5 hours to do. Standard Horde game on beginner will probably take you maybe about 1.5 hours to 2 hours potentially, and this took 5.5. So our first mini boss wave, every 5 waves, subsequent 5 waves after 10, you get a mini boss. and our first was the Sentinel with a salvo rocket launcher underneath. Not too bad. The only thing is with the Sentinels, the shield goes down and is down for a limited time where you can damage them, and then the shield comes back up. So the ideal circumstances is to try and knock that shield down once and then kill it quickly. Obviously the AI teammates are still a bit, well, they get it down within two shields, but the ideal one for a player, and the player would run across and grab the salvo. The AI soldiers cannot pick up or swap weapons in Horde mode. So as you can see, Sentinel there tried to be very cheeky with us and actually went under the map. I have no idea why that happened. It's happened quite a few times on Harbour for me, to be honest. But yeah, he went under the map. You can still see he was firing there. And then he comes out, luckily though, out of bounds. As long as you can see it, you can hit it, effectively. So out of bounds, when he's up there, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that'll matter is his corpse will probably fall out, and if we were playing a normal game, we wouldn't be able to pick up the salvo. So yeah, for those of you who don't know what Horde mode is Gears of War's survival mode. So you've got waves 1 to 50. Every 10 waves you have a boss wave, and every 5 waves, like I said before, after 10 you get a mini boss. There's also damage multipliers, where you might notice if I bring up the scoreboard, I think it's in the bottom left hand corner of the scoreboard, there is 3 symbols. So at wave 11, 21, 31 and 41, the enemies get buffs. So I believe it's extra damage, 2 times damage on the first one, 2 times accuracy, and 2 times health, I believe, as well. And then when you hit 41, wave 41, they all get bumped up to 2.5. Could be wrong about the health one. If I am, please leave a comment below. It's been a while since I've been playing Escape quite a lot, then came back to do this for Horde. So yeah, by wave 20, as you can see, my my ammo collection is going relatively well, and we get a carrier. And the carrier didn't like us at all. You can see there, I actually made the decision to start reviving the teammates if I could. But yeah, the carrier basically wiped the floor with us. They weren't doing enough damage to him as he marched his way down the field, so when he got to us, he just literally tore my cog soldiers apart. So we refreshed and we got into the Swarmac, and as you can see, I decided to do my little test again. We now have all 4 of the cog soldiers firing on the Swarmac at 0 health, and he's still not going down. So unfortunately, it looks like the bosses, Swarmacs particularly, cannot be killed by the AI soldiers. They need a player to deliver the final blow. So I go ahead and do that. It does more damage this time. It does a slightly more damage at 40, I believe. That's how it might do 48. So it does a bit more damage, obviously, because the enemies are getting tougher. But yeah, the player still needs to deal the final blow. So on wave 25, we've got a Sentinel again that tried to hide outside of the map from us. Didn't really work. One downside I did notice though is, as you can see there, if an enemy gets too close, the AI soldiers do like to use the chainsaw on their Lancer, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal. However, it can be a bit of a pain, and they can go down quite quickly, because as soon as an enemy comes up, if you rev the chainsaw bayonet and get hit, it stuns you and you stop revving it up. So what happens in that scenario is that it just basically freezes them for a few seconds and they can go down in that time. There we go, we got a Pouncer for our first time. Wave 29, I believe that says. We got a Pouncer for the very first time, and the Pouncers are, well, as the name implies, they pounce and jump around a hell of a lot, and they actually dealt with that very, very well. Wave 30, we got a carrier again. This time I literally went across the whole side of the map and marked him as quick as I could, and he just tore my guys apart again. So I wanted to see if they could knock him down to low health, sorry, excuse me, and then deal the final blow. That's all I wanted to see, but there was no way I was going to get anywhere near that with a carrier, because the carrier is one of the tankiest bosses in Horde mode. And yeah, they weren't quick enough. Usually with a player, and games I've played, if the carrier gets too close, you just literally run across the other side of the map and hold a position and try and just basically kite the boss. But yeah, that wasn't to be. So this soldier was on his own, so I picked him up. They were distracted by the fortification, picked him up just to see how well one would do on his own. It didn't go too well for the poor soldier. Still better than I expected though. A lot better than I expected from the AI. Usually AIs get a bit of a bad gripe in gaming, but no, the Horde mode ones are quite good. Yeah, ripped apart. So I just went over and basically offered myself to the carrier. So we get a fresh boss. And we got a Swarmak again, wave 30. So, you know, I'm a bit like, I get another boss. But, you know, fair enough, I'll do my test again. And the test yielded exactly the same result as the previous 2 boss waves, where they cannot deal final blow to the Swarmak. So I had to go in and do it again. It does more damage than last time. 1,800 damage this time, as opposed to the 18 from the first wave, first boss wave. But yeah, that's, you know, unfortunately, the player has to deal a final blow, and then we killed it far too quickly, which in Horde, if you kill a boss too quickly, it spawns another one in. And this time I made sure that every soldier that was up was firing at it. And yeah, still no damage. Done. I left it, so this was one of the last few enemies, so I sat here. I've trimmed this footage down, obviously, 5 hours. I sat here for quite a while, about 5 minutes, watching them just shoot the Swarmak, and it did nothing to no avail, unfortunately, at 0 health. So obviously again I had to go in and deal a final blow, which I thought was quite interesting. So obviously it means the player has to get the kills on the bosses. So wave 35, we got stumps. Now stumps are basically, for those who don't play Gears, effectively the big DR1 robot you can see there walking towards. He can either have a rocket launcher or he can have a chain gun. And the stump is effectively a leech, almost possessed version of one of those. So unfortunately one sort of crawls forward, and he's all, as you can see there by that reject on the left hand side, similar leech design to that. So the stumps as well, they got the stump down to 0 health, and then the one on the right and the 2 in the middle now are absolutely pelting him with bullets. And once again, no cigar once he hits 0 health. However, it confused me slightly. I left this one a little bit longer because obviously the Guardians from the past few mini-boss waves have been taken out by the AI, no difficulty at all. So I had to quickly end both stumps once they were down to 0 health, and we now move on to wave 40. And wave 40 we got a Kestrel, which obviously, as you can see, is a chopper. Now I was anxious about this one slightly because I didn't know if Jack would be able to reach the Kestrel. So if I have to deal a final blow on a Kestrel, is Jack high enough? Because I can't alter the height with Jack. The height you get is the height you get. Best I can do is look up and lean back, and that'll sort of point me in the right direction. But we'll see how that plays out. And yeah, the only downside is as well with the AI, they're quite quick to run in for the revive, as you can see here. And if there's a gun, if the Kestrel had been firing for a few more seconds, that would have been 3 of them wiped out straight away within quick succession, because they will rush the revive. And you see there's one of the DR1s I was on about there with the chain gun. So the Kestrel, they actually do really, really well with the Kestrel. As you can see, all these bosses, I'm impressed with the AI soldiers, because all these bosses, they actually take the health bars down pretty quickly when they focus on them. And obviously you've got to bear in mind that this boss wave is not just the Kestrel on its own, it's a lot of tougher sort of enemies as well, like the bigger DR1s, the Scions we saw from earlier on with the rocket launchers and the drop shots. So yeah, the Kestrel is down to 0 health. I get as close to it as I can and hit it with the shocker, and that does it. Shocker, I mean Jack's shocker, not the, other one. My ammo collection there, very proud of it, growing quite nicely. And yeah, so the Kestrel and Swarmak so far are the bosses that can not be killed by the AI soldiers. And as we move on to wave 45, into the last 5 waves now, this is where things got fun. So they kind of got into a bit of a revive chain here, where there was a stump just sat in front of them, and they just kept going down, and kept going down, and kept going down. So what I ended up doing was hiding around this corner, and eventually, obviously the challenge by this point, the titular challenge is already done, like I said, so this is just to see if they can do 50, and I was on wave 45, I did about 4.5 hours, 5 hours at this point. So I just started, as you'll see in a second, I started picking them up, just so that we could actually, didn't do any damage to any enemies that I didn't have to. As you can see, this reject is beating the hell out of me. No, I just kept reviving them, picking them up, just so that we could actually see if they're capable. If they're capable of killing high around enemies when there's other ones around. Yeah, the wave timer from 40 to where I had to stop my recordings. From 40 to 46 was about an hour, and then from 46 to 50 was half an hour. So they are still as capable as they were in the early rounds. They'll take a lot more time, and you need to start marking the enemies if you're going to attempt this. You need to, or you like say you're the only soldier left alive, you need to start marking your enemies for the AI soldiers to do their bit. That's the same with sentry turrets as well. If you're new to Gears 5 and you didn't play Gears 4, that was one thing in that. If you mark an enemy that's in range and it's a bigger enemy, say your sentries are firing on a grenadier, if you mark a boss wave like a flock for example, sentry turrets will focus fire on a player's mark. So wave 50, we got a carry to start with, and as you can see I wiped, just wasn't doing that for wave 50 again. I know the answer to how that's going to end. And we got a flock, and the first flock they took out really quickly, but unfortunately it spawned another one in, and the flock is one that they can take out, so I just let them get on with it. There we go, flock down. And we did not beat Gears 5's Horde mode with only the AI soldiers, because with some bosses, turns out that the player has to deal the final blow. So yeah, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching. This is probably the longest video to record I have ever had to do. This took me about 5.5 hours just to get the footage for this. I had to take a break from Gears of War for quite some period of time after this. But yeah, so a like would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy this series, do let me know in the comments below. And I will see you guys next time.